G'day, ZiggyD here with another Path of Exile gearing guide. In the last video we took a look at amulets, and today we're going to be looking at a very similar slot, rings. So we'll start off again with the base item types of rings and the implicit mods that are available on those. So first up you have the Iron Ring, which is the implicit mod of adds 1 to 4 physical damage. Now this does not currently scale in the game, and the reason for this is that it's been said to be a balance reason by Chris Wilson and a few of the other developers. Eventually they may look into changing the way iron rings and flat damage increase jewelry like this works, but at the moment they just stay the same. So what this means is that while iron rings are pretty good for the first 10 levels or so, after that they're pretty much useless. The only use for Iron Ring in the late game is for getting them and trading them with a skill gem to a vendor to get one of the resistance rings. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about Iron Rings. Use them a little bit if you find them in the start, but later on you want to trade for a coral or a resistance ring or something like that. So on that note, let's go. Next one is the Coral Ring, which has 20 to 30 maximum life. So that's the mod range on those. Obviously these are really good. Extra max life is a very good thing to have. That multiplies with your passives that give you % increased life, and that can 30 extra life can result in, you know, a couple hundred extra life if you have a lot of passives. So that's always a pretty good ring, and coral rings are pretty popular throughout the game. 30 maximum life is it scales somewhat because of in the late game you will have those percentage mods as well as just the life from the ring itself. So after those we have 4 different types of resistance rings. So obviously first we have the Sapphire Ring, which does 20 to 30 cold resist. Then we've got the Ruby Ring, which does 20 to 30 fire resist. And then the Topaz Ring, which does 20 to 30 lightning resist. So these are all great if you need a specific resist. If you're falling behind in a certain resist, or say you're about to take on Merveil, you can quickly chuck on 2 Sapphire Rings and have a much easier fight of it. So they're pretty useful for that. And then you've got the Prismatic Ring, which is actually fairly new. It's new in the open beta. And this does 8 to 12 elemental all resist. So it gives you, you know, one of each type of resist, and overall it can be more overall resistances, but it's spread out amongst the 3. So if you need a lot of lightning resist, you're really falling behind on lightning resist, the Prismatic Ring might not be the best choice for you. You might be better off with the Topaz Ring. But Prismatic Rings are really popular because they give you that nice balance approach, and overall it can give you more resistance. And if you've kept the rest of your gearing and passives pretty balanced in terms of the resistances you've gotten, then Prismatics are often a good choice. And then the final base ring type that you have is the Gold Ring. Just like the Gold Amulet, it gives you increased rarity of items found, and I believe the mod range for this is 10 to 15% increased rarity. Hopefully that's right. So with the base ring types out of the way, let's move on to the mods. Now the mod pool for rings is very, very similar to amulets, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing. Instead I'm going to point out the differences. I'll paste in the description below though the entire pool and a link to the pool with the ranges of those mods so that you can check them out and if you need to roll some rings and things like that. But in this video I'm just going to focus on the actual changes from going from amulets to rings, because on first inspection I'm like, these mod pools are very much the same. There's no major differences, but when you look really closely, there's a few really key differences that make rings, you know, that you have to be aware of if you're trying to gear really well with your rings. So the first, let's take a look at first what's not on rings that was on amulets. So the evasion and armor rating % mods that were available in amulets, so that's like a global increase to your evasion rating or your armor rating, isn't available on rings at all, so you can't get that on rings. Now that instead, rings have 2 other stats that can be pretty useful. In terms of prefixes, you have base evasion rating, and that is a max of 150. That's somewhere around like level 74, so you can get up to 150 base evasion rating per ring. Now that is quite a lot, and if you're playing a pure evasion build or an iron reflexes build that converts your evasion to armor, that can be quite a lot. So you can get a total of 300 evasion rating across your 2 rings, and that obviously will multiply with any evasion passives you have. So that's a pretty cool mod. And then in terms of suffixes, we have attack speed %. Now I was interested to find that that isn't available on amulets because I thought it was, but this is available on rings, and you can get a whopping 10% increased attack speed on each ring. So that's 20% possible increased attack speed. Obviously that's very high level though, and you'd be more likely to get something, you know, around the 5 mark if you're a mid-level sort of character, but you can still get a lot of attack speed on your rings, and if you're playing an attacking type build like a bow or a melee character, then you can get a lot of attack speed through your rings, and that's an excellent spot to try and get that. So now let's talk about I'll give you guys some examples of the ideal rings for attackers and then for casters, sort of like what I did with amulets, just to provide an example and get you guys a bit of an idea of a base to work upon. Obviously, rings are very flexible like the amulet slot, and if you need specific mods in your build, then you can get them on rings just like you can get them with amulets. But let's take a look at the ideal mods for an attacker's ring. So in terms of prefixes, base evasion if you're an iron reflexes or evasion build. As I said, you can get up to 300 across both of your rings, and that can be a massive increase in terms of defensive stats. So that's a pretty nice one to have. As always, max life is always excellent to have, so that's a good prefix. And then you've got the added min-max damage, so cold, lightning, fire, and physical added damage. So they're always good, especially if you're going for a high attack speed build, which can go nicely with rings since you can get attack speed on your rings as well. The other one is life leech as a prefix, which can be good if you've got a high physical damage build. And then weapon elemental damage, which is pretty much always good if you have any elemental damage. It's a increase that's very similar to the amulet increase. So that can be a very powerful prefix there. And in terms of suffixes, attack speed, which is the one I mentioned, that can be very high. So that's a great suffix to have. And obviously you can have any one of the 4 resists, so chaos, lightning, fire, cold resist. It's pretty good if you're going an attacking build to trade out one of your resists for attack speed. I think it's well worth that sacrifice to get a bit more attack speed, but it really depends on your build. So in terms of caster rings, base life is good for a caster if you are not like a pure energy shield caster, or if you're not going like a low life build or something like that. Base energy shield is a fantastic mod to have, especially if you're going CI. Just like with life, that multiplies with your passive, so it's a great prefix to have there. And then something interesting about caster rings is there's no really good third prefix for rings. So if you have a ring that has 5 mods on it, and 3 resists, and then you've got life and energy shield, then there's really no point exalting your ring because there's no good third mod. The ones that are okay are item rarity % and increased max mana. So either of those are not really worth an exalt. So if you have a 5 mod ring and you're thinking about exalting it, check first whether you have 3 prefixes and 2 suffixes, or what the distribution there is. And if you can only go for something like mana or rarity, it's really not worth the exalt. So, and then in terms of suffixes, we have cast speed % just like with the amulet, obviously a fantastic mod for any caster. And then your resists, but also elemental damage type. So those are the % increases to a certain type of elemental damage. So you can get like cold, increased cold damage %, which is great if you're going like a freezing pulse build or something like that. So rings are fairly interesting overall, like amulets, and as long as you remove those key differences, the lack of the armor rating, evasion rating %, and the increased evasion base rating, and then the increased attack speed, those are the main ones to watch out for there. Anyway, hopefully you guys have found this helpful. In the next video, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be taking a look at belts. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.